guys, I'm Linda.
And I'm Vicki.
And we are Partners in Crime. So today we are going to dive into something that happened in 2005. It was featured on 2020 as the title was The Woman in the Suitcase. And one of our viewers actually requested that we look into this. So it was Christina Finnemore that asked us to do a segment on this. So thanks, Christina.
Thanks, Christina.
We are going to go into it. So this is regarding an Inna Budnytska. She was a Ukrainian who came over to the country. She worked on a cruise ship. She was found on the side of the road by a Florida power and light worker around 8:30 a.m. in November of 2005. It was in the Miami-Dade area. She was beaten and sexually assaulted when she was found. She was taken to the hospital in critical condition, and she did not gain consciousness for over 24 hours. There were no clothes or identification, nothing around her that could ID her. When she regained consciousness, she couldn't talk, but she could write down her name. She said she was from the Ukraine, and then she wrote down, this was curious, wrote down her lawyer's name, Mitchell Lipcon, and his phone number. The detectives were like, why are you giving us a lawyer's name? You know, so works out that Inna, I'm going to say Inna, that worked for a cruise ship and had a civil lawsuit against the cruise line. That's why she had that lawyer. She injured her hand and was staying at the Airport Regency Hotel in the Miami area when she was recovering, which is why she was found in that area. So she was staying at the Airport Regency Hotel. She said she went out to dinner with her friend when she started coming to and was able to speak. She went out to dinner with her friend Peter, who was also someone that worked for the cruise line, and he was a Greek national. So he was not from the United States either. But she was back at the hotel at 11:30. So they were out, they had dinner. She said that her and Peter were in a cab. They dropped Peter off at his house, and then she was brought back to the hotel. Lots of cameras. There's lots of cameras at the hotel which showed her coming and going wearing a red jacket. She left again around 3:30 a.m. and came back around 3:40. She said she went to the gas station to get a calling card to call her mother in the Ukraine, which makes sense because they're a different time and maybe her mother was just waking up and she really didn't have much to do. She was recovering. So when she came back, they did show her getting into the elevator at the hotel. Again, she had the jacket on. So this Peter gentleman was looked at once they found her, and they talked to him by the police because he was arrested at a nightclub in the Coconut Grove area because he grabbed Inna's arm and was charged with domestic violence. So basically they were going out previously, I guess weeks before, and she didn't want to leave, but Peter thought there were some people that he didn't want her being alone there with. So he was kind of trying to say, come on, let's go. He grabbed her and the police did come. So of course they wanted to see, was he actually someone that could have done this to her? Then they also looked at the night manager at the hotel, George Perez, because when Inna came back to the hotel, which was earlier at 11:30, he left the front desk to take her to a room. He said she was intoxicated, but the video doesn't really show that when the police looked at it.
Right.
So they weren't sure about that. Inna did have some memories come back, and she thought she was brought downstairs. She kept saying she kept feeling like she was going down, down, down. But there wasn't anything on camera, her going downstairs. So there was nothing on camera. They showed her getting into the elevator. Then they did not see her in any other cameras, but yet she was found on the side of the road. So they were like, what happened? When the police went to her room, there wasn't any sign of struggle when the police searched it. So they really didn't understand what had happened to her. Inna, of course, was having a hard time with her memory because of the head trauma. She, as she got better, things did change. Her story did change slightly. The police actually thought she might be a prostitute, since the video near the elevator shows her there around 3:40, but she didn't swipe the card to her room until 3:58. So they thought, she said she went up to her room, but then she didn't go into her room until 18 minutes later or 17 minutes later. So they're like, well, and when they did talk to her, she was very upset that they thought this of her, which is understandable.
Right.
So Detective Alan Foote was the detective in charge of the case. They did take DNA from her sexual assault because she was sexually assaulted, so they did have that. George, the night manager, and her friend Peter did offer up their DNA sample. They were not a match. So Inna did think that in her memory, and she didn't know, she kept saying, I don't know if it's a dream or if it was what actually happened to me, that she thought there were two gentlemen that came into her room and took her. But the story, of course, was changing. She thought they had like accents or something. She also said that she thought she was sexually assaulted in the car and that someone was laughing while that was happening. Inna did sue the hotel due to lack of security because this happened to her. The hotel then hired a PI named Ken Brennan. And this is where everything changed. So Ken came in because she was suing the hotel. They have a PI come in to just figure out what happened, to see if there's any merit to her suit against them.
Right.
Ken found out that the clock to the camera at the elevator and the key swipe were not showing the same time. So that's where the difference was. That's where that 17 minutes difference was, because between the card swipe and the elevator camera, they were just not in sync. So so she did not go. She said she went right up to her room, and that's actually what happened. Why they were doing this story, they kind of made you think, what's going on? But winds up, and they didn't show this until later into the show, that when she did go to the elevator, you do see a large black man actually come up behind her trying to get on the elevator as well. So they're just standing there. They small talk. They just, I guess he said, how's your night or whatever. They did get on to the elevator, and he, said, go ahead. So there was another video of this man coming out of the elevator around 5:28 a.m. with a suitcase and left the hotel to return an hour later without the suitcase. So Ken was watching these videos. Again, there's no video of Inna leaving the hotel from this point forward. So how did this woman not get captured on the camera?
Right.
So
that's really suspicious.
Yeah, Ken watched the video, and he watched the video of this gentleman coming out of the elevator. He's a very big man. When you watch this, you'll see he's a very big man. He had to, how there's a little lip coming out of the elevator, it's like a bump. He had to physically put two hands on the suitcase to pull it over that. Now, Ken's like, this is a big guy. There's nothing in that suitcase that would warrant that unless he thought
She was in
maybe
there.
she was in the suitcase. So then Ken, just from the video, he figured out the measurements for the suitcase. Then they had a woman about the same size as Inna get into the suitcase to see if she was comfortable, if she could be moved around. And it was very easy for her to get in there. They zipped it up and they were moving her around. Now that makes it, when she said she felt like she was going down, she's in the suitcase, probably knocked out, but maybe coming to,
In the
and yeah, going
elevator.
down the elevator and then being pulled over that.
Right.
They found out that the man was a gentleman named Michael Jones, who was in the area for a boat show. He worked for caterers, but he lived in Maryland, so he was there for the boat show.
So this is the gentleman who was dragging the suitcase?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, Michael Jones is his name. The police talked to Michael, and he, I think, just thought, oh, they don't have anything on me. They're not going to get anything on me for this. He said he had nothing to do with it and couldn't really say. They were asking him, okay, what was in the suitcase? First he's saying there's an Xbox, and he's like, oh, an Xbox? It was that heavy? Oh, well, I had some books in there. You know, he really couldn't say what was in the suitcase. Nothing that would warrant that tug out of the elevator. So they did ask him to do a DNA sample, and he said, sure. Well, comes out that it's a match. He also said the reason why his DNA, he said the reason why his DNA matched was because she was a prostitute.
Oh.
And he had hired her that evening. So they did find out, though, they also gave him a lie detector test, and a polygraph, and he did not pass that either.
Oh, okay.
So, Ken then found out about Michael and had found out that he had cases against him in 2 other states, in Colorado and New Orleans, Louisiana. So they did ultimately charge him with the crime. And there was another video that I didn't watch, but I think Inna was helpful in maybe prosecuting him for the Colorado person. So just from the brief headline that I watched on the video. So it was just a shame. I mean, the photos of her, which I'll post, are just horrific. I mean, she just big black eye, and just she had trauma all over the place.
So Inna was some kind of witness against him in another crime?
Probably because of her situation. I don't believe she witnessed it, but to try to pin this on him in Colorado, they probably brought her in because he did the same thing to her. Not necessarily the same exact thing as far as the putting her in a suitcase and all that kind of stuff.
Similar crime.
But similar crime, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was very interesting. So Christina, thanks for bringing that up. Mm-hmm. I did see this before when it was on 2020. So I didn't, when she gave us the title, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then when I started watching it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I remember this.
There have been a number of crimes from years back. There was a little girl found in a suitcase. So when we got this title from Christina, I wasn't sure what it related to. There's also a little boy in a suitcase. I don't think they ever ID'd this poor child.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, you can see that, because I wanted to look up some information about her, about this crime.
Right.
And these other ones were coming up as well in the internet.
Right. So thank God she's well.
She made it out alive.
Yeah, she did make it out alive. It's just very sad. When they talked to her, you could see she has a scar from, I guess, getting beat. And
I wonder if he thought she was dead and why he let her live. I don't know.
He probably thought she was dead on the side of the road. He beat her and thought maybe she wouldn't survive, especially on the side of the road. Anybody could hit her. An animal could come after. I mean, because they're in Florida. Maybe he thought an alligator could get her something.
Right.
So he just thought that she was probably done. And, yeah, but she survived and was able to.
It's good to hear.
Tell her story. So Very interesting.
It is very interesting.
But yeah, justice has been done and he is in jail. So.
Well, thank you, Christina. And when we put out the request to certain Facebook groups to give us some recommendations, we got quite a few.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's really great, and it's good to know that people are true crime enthusiasts and want to know about these things. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and we'll look into as many of these cases as we can. We probably got about 12 recommendations that I can think of off the top of my head.
Right.
So we'll do as many as we can, and please comment on what we have done, and like the video and share it, because that's how other people find out about us, and we like their comments and recommendations as well.
For sure. Yeah.
So please do.
Yep. Helps us out. So this is our channel just as well as your channel. So we want to make sure we dive into things that you're interested about. So
great.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Until next time, we will say goodbye. Bye.